Chair of FDGA. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We have a lot of people signed up for tonight, so we're gonna wait for the room to fill up. While we are here, would love to have everybody just in the chat, tell us who you are and where you're signing in from. Um, just so you know, we prefer that you have a name in your profile name on Zoom instead of like iPhone 286 or something. Please just put a name in there so we can address you by name if we need to. And we'd love to hear where you're all signing in from. So welcome and thank you for joining. Barbara from Atlanta. Welcome, Barbara. Stone Mountain. Hey, Joyce, welcome. Lucy from Marietta. All right, covering the metro area. Atlanta DeKalb. Hey, Alita, how are you? Mableton. Hey, Tom, welcome. Brookhaven, another Tom, two Toms. Augusta, welcome from Augusta. Fran from Alpharetta, I'm from Alpharetta, welcome. Decatur, Claudia from Decatur, thank you. Another DeKalb Atlanta person, Scott. So again, if you're just joining us, please sign in on the chat and just give us a quick shout out to let us know where you're joining us from. We're gonna wait just a couple more minutes until the anticipated folks join. Laura from Athens, welcome. Came on from Roswell. Swanee. I know we have at least one person here from coastal Georgia, but she has not signed in yet to let us know. Hope from North Fulton. Lilburn. Ellen Wright from Lone Oak, Georgia. I'm not sure where Lone Oak is, but it sounds interesting. Gloria from East Atlanta, another Atlanta person. Anne. Julie from Midtown, covering the Atlanta area pretty well here. Karen and Bruce from Athens. I've seen you on our town halls before. Welcome back. Beth from Darien. There's our person from coastal Georgia. Again, we're going to get started here in just a moment, but thank you all for joining the town hall. Our first one for this year. We have a lot of really interesting stuff to talk about and some actual news that broke today about redistricting in Georgia. So you will be one of the first people to hear it, probably before even the news outlets report it. So you should come here and subscribe to our newsletters because we keep you up to date on redistricting. Paula from DeKalb. How many folks are in the meeting now, team? How many do we have in the participants?
We have 55 at the moment.
55. All right, we'll give it just another minute at 7:04 or so. We'll get going.
And just another reminder, if you have your name listed as iPhone 238, please use your name. We'd like to know who's here. Thank you.
Janet from Douglas County. Well, Janet, your neck of the woods has been very important to this latest round of redistricting, so we hope you'll enjoy and be informed by what you see today. Jade from DeKalb County, welcome. Mindy from Cobb County, where local maps are still unknown. Yes, Mindy, well aware of that. Mindy is working with an organization that's been looking after the issues with Cobb County School Board and County Commission maps. One of the key people that we see run into all the time on redistricting. Thanks, Mindy, for joining. All right, I think it's 5 after. I think we should go ahead and start the program now. And we'll let other folks join. Just again, if you join in progress, please don't hesitate to drop your name and location in the chat. And again, thank you very much for joining this evening. I'm going to go ahead and kick off the program tonight. I'll be presenting. My name is Ken Lawler. I am one of the co-chairs of Fair Districts Georgia. Tonight, what we're going to cover is a lot of information about what's been going on in redistricting in the last, really since about our last town hall was in September, towards the middle to end of September. A lot has gone on if you're following redistricting in the courts and the legislature. We're going to try to bring you up to speed on all that stuff. So we're going to be recovering a lot of what happened in the special legislative session and let you know where we stand with the maps right now. So that's our program tonight. Our agenda for this evening is we're going to discuss, what did the court order in the October 26th ruling? What happened during the special legislative session? And really the two key questions are, how did the legislature draw the new maps? And how did our organization, Fair Districts GA, assess the maps? What was the final court ruling on December 28th? And then going to back up and say, so after all this, do we have fair maps or not? Where do we stand on whether the maps are fair? And then we're going to ask you to tell us your story. How are you affected? So we're going to ask you towards the end of the program to write down your story and send it to us so that we can include some personal stories about redistricting in upcoming town halls and communications. We're going to have a quick call for volunteers for our next town hall, and we will have time for Q&A. So we have a packed agenda tonight, and I'll be taking you through most of the agenda as assisted by Beth Stevenson, one of the co-chairs of our research team. So that's our agenda for the evening. I want to just back up, and you've seen this chart before if you've joined into our town halls about the cases that have been pending against redistricting or about redistricting in Georgia. And these are the statewide cases. These are not related to the Cobb County or other county level cases. But there were 5 cases. The 3 cases with the red asterisks were the ones that went through trial in September. Then the judge issued an order in October. The new district maps have been filed and enacted by the state as a result of those cases. Until 30 minutes ago, we thought that the December 28th decision on those 3 cases was final. However, we have breaking news that we'll share with you later on in the program. The other 2 cases with the green asterisks were cases that were going to be heard by 3 judge panels. Those cases have been basically deferred because the other 3 cases have kind of covered the territory, and the other 3 cases have been adjudicated. And again, there's some breaking news that we'll share with you a little bit later. But those cases really related to the congressional map, the state house, and the state senate map. So the trial was held in early September, a 2-week trial, and many folks on this call were sitting down at the courthouse observing that trial. Let's talk about what was decided there. What did the judge actually say? So in a long, 560-page opinion, Judge Steve Jones ruled that in the state violated the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and its later interpretations, and ordered specific remedies in 3 cases, what's called the Grant case, the Alpha Phi Alpha case, and the Pendergrass cases. Those are the ones with the green asterisks on the prior chart. The judge ordered that remedy maps had to be produced with a due date of December 8th. The judge also said that the state is unable or unwilling to enact those plans, the court would appoint a special master and draw the plans themselves. And the court said that those maps that were defective from 2021 cannot be used in any further election. So he forced the issue, saying the state must redraw the maps to comply with the Voting Rights Act. Now, what did the court really order here? The court ordered for Congress one more majority Black district in West Metro Atlanta, 2 additional majority Black voting districts in South Metro Atlanta for the state Senate, and for the state house, 2 additional majority Black districts in South Metro Atlanta, 1 additional district in West Metro, and 2 additional Black majority districts in and around Macon-Bibb. The judge also said something very interesting in his order. He said the state cannot apply these remedies by eliminating minority districts elsewhere. In other words, you can't rob Peter to pay Paul, if you want to use a colloquial term, right? So the judge said, this is what you have to do. That was what the state was ordered to do. Okay. Now we're going to walk through each of these maps in detail shortly and show you exactly how the districts were constructed and what did we think about those maps. But prior to the special session, 30 organizations, I think it was more than 30 actually, in addition to Fair Districts Georgia, wrote a letter to the state, the General Assembly. We wrote it to the Lieutenant Governor, Speaker of the House, and the two reapportionment committees. And we basically said we want a fair process this time. We told them that we didn't think the process that it was executed in 2021 was that fair. And in particular, we said this particular session, this legislative session that's been called, is about fixing the remedy that the court has ordered. It is not about partisan political considerations. In other words, there should be no attempt by either political party to further gain political advantage in drawing these maps. This should be about remedying what the judge asked you to remedy and adding the additional Black majority districts. So that was a key point in the letter that we wrote. And again, we thank the 30 other organizations that you can see there joined us in this voicing of our opinion to the legislative committees and the leadership in each of the chambers. So what did we do? We had a day at the Capitol on opening day on November 29th, I believe it was, in partnership with the League of Women Voters of Georgia. We had a team attending throughout the entire session every day. We gave testimony on each of the proposed maps. We showed them some handouts that we'll share with you, some of our scorecards. We had a great participation from the Joint Redistricting Coalition, many of the organizations that you saw in the prior letters. And we had a lot of attention paid by the media. We were interviewed by several media outlets around the state, either at the Capitol or beforehand or afterwards. So we had very good coverage of the media of what we were trying to do and how this special session was going on. So that's what we did. Now, the centerpiece of our work in terms of helping understand whether the maps are fair were an effort that we put together to try to design some tools and for scoring the maps. And now I'm going to ask Beth Stevenson, co-chair of our research committee, to explain what we built, the system that we set up, and give you a little bit of a flavor for what kind of scorecards we were able to produce.
Thanks, Ken. The scorecards were thought about in some detail well before the special session, and we had templates set up. We thought through what we wanted to say and how we wanted to try to convey information to people, to the public, to the media, and to legislators. And so we came up with really a rapid map analysis and scoring. Incredible kudos to the volunteers on the research committee that helped pull all this together. They were able to analyze the maps and produce scorecards within an hour once the proposed maps were put forward. We were able to look at those proposed maps and compare them to kind of the existing districts. Immediately published on the website and social media. So we were able to get them right out there, and you'll see some examples of them being used in actual testimony and in the conversations that people in Fair Districts had under the Gold Dome. Two-part pass-fail test was kind of the key to it. We tried to keep it pretty simple. We wanted to know for each map that came up very quickly, did that map add the Black voting districts per the court order? So what the court said they needed to do, did these maps accomplish that? But we also were very interested in wanting to know whether the map included unrelated political changes. Ken referenced the letter that went out talking about we want this to be a fair process. We don't want things happening in those maps that aren't really related to the court order. So did the map include unrelated political changes? So those were the kind of pass fail. We were able to sort of put something together that said, did it do this? Yes, no, yes, no. So for the maps that came forward. And so the next slide is a sample of the scorecard. I'm just going to walk you through this because it very simply, so that when Ken goes into each of the actual map scorecards, you'll understand what the pieces are. And what I'm going to say is this is an incredibly busy slide. We should never have this up here, but this is what they look like. And I want to share them so that you can go on the website, look at the scorecards and get a better sense of them. So as you can see, each scorecard started with the court mandate. What was it in this particular, this is the congressional map. What did the court mandate? So Ken showed that slide what it is, but we put it here on the scorecard so it's very easy for people to see. Then we also put down the two key questions that we just went over, the two things we were asking for. Does the map implement the remedy required by the court by adding Black majority districts? And if you look at the chart below, that first level chart that says racial demographics is an attempt for us to look at the map and answer that yes/no question. The second question, remember, was, does the map contain other changes unrelated to the prescribed remedies affecting bipartisan balance or competitiveness of districts? And you'll see the second part of that chart at the bottom is about partisan balance and competitiveness. And so you'll see that there. And in this case, this particular scorecard, you'll see two X's on the far right-hand side. Did it pass the questions? And what we very quickly, within an hour, were able to say, no, this particular map that was proposed did not. You'll see the details in there, so you can go in and read about them, what we used in terms of the data for the racial demographics and the partisan balance. You'll also see the information from the 2021 enacted map, the one that we were, that was to be remedied, the map that was the comparison map that was already in existence and the enacted map. The proposed map was where we filled in the numbers in an hour to be able to say, okay, this is what this new proposed map does compared with the other one. And then there's some detail in there about what changed with specifics about districts, area of the state, what happened with those. Now, the second page of each scorecard really gets into a little bit of detail and graphics. And you can kind of see the enacted map, 2021 enacted map for the Black districts, minority districts, and you can see proposed maps. And so we had those actual visuals in the scorecard too. Back to the chart real quick, I want to mention we wrestled with how to show the amount of changes that some of these proposed maps had. And so you'll see there is one that at the bottom of the chart, it talks about total districts changed. So it has all the scorecards had that information, and it also talked about the amount of population that moved between districts. So you can see how much movement the new proposed map might do, which gives you a hint at what might be happening in terms of our districts being changed that don't need to be changed. That was a scorecard along with a very basic statement about what a fair map includes so that we could continue to educate everybody about what a fair map is part of. Now, Ken's going to go into some details, I think. Anything else you want to add to this?
Well, we're going to walk through each of the three maps and how we scored them. And so thank you, Beth, for that introduction. These scorecards are available on our website. You can download them, print them, send them to your friends, post them publicly. It's public information. It's meant to help educate the public, all of our folks around the state around what's going on here. And those will be available on our website for some considerable period of time. So now what we're going to do is walk through each of the maps one at a time and talk about how the legislature responded to the court's specific order, and then they built maps, and then our reaction to those maps as displayed in our scorecards. So let's start with the congressional map. So first of all, this map shows is going to discuss what exactly did the what was the court saying here, right? And so this is the existing congressional map, and what the judge says that there were 4 districts that violated the Voting Rights Act by unnecessarily diluting the voices of Black voters. And he called out the 6th, the 11th, the 14th, and the 13th. They're all kind of clustered around the West Metro Atlanta area. And the trial was a very detailed exposition by experts on, which areas of the state are affected, where is the Black population located that isn't being allowed to choose representative of their choice. And then they discussed specific districts where they thought violations were occurring. And so they called out those 4 districts. And so the judge then ordered a new Black majority district somewhere in the West Metro Atlanta area. So that's what the existing map looked like. That's from 2021. And what the judge, that's a summary of basically what the judge decided. Here's the violations. Here's where you need to put the new district roughly in this region. Go. Okay. So this is what the legislature did, right? Well, we have two sets of maps that we're going to look at. The first set of maps was when the primary set of maps that were discussed in the hearings were those proposed by the committee chair. That means that the majority party went into the legislature session and they went and drew maps, they produced them, and then they held hearings on these maps. Now, the maps get drawn in secret. We can't see the actual map drawing process. Unfortunately, that's a bit of transparency we'd like to have, but we don't. But you can see what the result was. So they added this new district, the 6th, in West Metro Atlanta that was not there before, although you could argue in 2020 it was there. It's kind of like it's where the old 6th district roughly was, but it's in the West Metro Atlanta area. And so they drew a new district, number 6, which encompasses it's a new Black majority district. But they also made a change to District 7. This is the new map. Now we're looking at District 7. Congressional District 7 was in Gwinnett County. But what they did was they wanted to even the partisan score. When they drew the new 6th district, it became a net new Democratic district. And they recognized that that was going to cause a problem with potentially losing a congressional seat. And so they rejiggered District 7, moving some, I don't know, 85 to 90% of the population out, and expanded District 7 up into the north regions of Georgia, Forsyth County and regions north. So we look at that as an unnecessary change, a partisan takeback, as we call it, where they're really just trying to even the score. I give you one district, give the Democrats a district because the court said you have to make this district, not for political purposes. The court said for racial representation purposes, but they did not want to lose that seat, and so they basically did a take back of District 7. So if you look at this little dancing graphic, you can kind of look at the changes, the before and after, right? So you can see where the 6th district was up in the red circle, then it moved down to where the green circle is. And look at where District 7 was. District 7 is kind of this funky shape over here. This is Gwinnett County. I'm kind of circling it with my cursor, if you can see that. And now, again, it got moved way up here to the north, right? Now, there's going to be changes whenever you move large numbers of population on. There's going to be a lot of people moved. This map changed 9 of the 14 congressional districts and moved about 29% of the population. In and of itself, that isn't an issue, but what we find as an issue here is that the 7th district basically got really kind of repurposed. It kind of uprooted and wholesale moved to another part of the state. Now, when we score these maps, this is a scorecard for that committee chair map on the left-hand side. And so how do we score this map? Well, we said, okay, in terms of adding Black majority districts, the very top row of the blue section, you've added Congressional District 6. Great, you did that. It actually technically added a second district because Congressional District 5 was just a few percentage points below 50. Now it's over. Not a material change. The bottom line was they did add District 6, which was what was requested. However, if you recall, what the judge said was you should not take away any other minority districts in order to add that. Well, they did here. What happened was Congressional District 7 was not a Black majority district, but it was a minority majority district, meaning you take minorities as a whole, Hispanic, Asian, Black, etc. That district was 67% people of color, 33% white. But when they redrew the 7th district as the partisan takeback, they flipped it, and now it becomes 67% white and 33% minority. So basically, they took away a minority majority district in order to make District 6. Now, we believe that was unnecessary, and we'll show you why in a minute. But the bottom line is that's how they drew the map. Now, the legislature made it was not hidden at all. They said, we are changing the maps. We're going to add the Black districts that are required by the court, but we are going to do so in such a way that it does maintain our existing partisan balance. We said those political considerations should be off the table. That's what we said in our letter. That's what we testified constantly as we went through these hearings. The bottom line was that district is a partisan takeback. So we scored this map as 2 fails. It failed because they eliminated a minority majority district, even though they added 1 Black majority district. And it fails because it was an unnecessary partisan change. So we said this map failed both of our tests. And this became a point of debate as we'll talk a little bit later about how the court dealt with this map. But that's what happened. Now, the Democrat caucus had proposed their own map, right? They proposed a different map. And what we know from the Democratic map is that it is possible to add a new District 6 in West Metro Atlanta without removing District 7. That's what their map demonstrated. So when the Democrats proposed their map, we actually gave it a pass on both parts because it made slightly fewer changes, and they were able to successfully add a new district for black voters without taking away any minority districts, and there were no other partisan changes necessary. So there's a partisan change in that District 6 becomes a net new Democratic district, but it was not necessary there was no other partisan changes. That partisan change was strictly as a result of what was ordered by the court itself. So we gave the Democratic map a pass. And here's just a quick snapshot of what the Democrats' map proposed looked like. It's got the 6th district, slightly different shape, but the same basic region where the committee chair drew their map, and they left 7 and 5 alone, 7 and 5 being two very strong minority performing districts. Again, the Democrats here are protecting their turf, if you will, but they demonstrate that it was not necessary to change the 7th district in order to draw these maps. They made their changes elsewhere in like 14 and 10 and some of those larger outlying districts. And so again, that's kind of how the congressional map went down. Let me just say that we will take questions later on. You may have questions about some of these details. Please put them in the chat as you see them, and there's slide numbers in the lower left corner. So if you want to ask a question on a particular slide or about a particular map, please note it, put it in the chat. We will address it later. I'm going to try to get through the material here, and then we will open up for Q&A, hopefully in about 15 minutes. So let's switch gears now and look at the state Senate map. So the state Senate map, this is the picture of the existing state Senate map from 2021. And the black dots show you the districts that were noted in the court as being violations. And you can see they kind of cluster around this. There's sort of a ring around the South Metro Atlanta area. That's what all this territory is. Okay. And what the court said was, okay, you need to draw 2 new black majority districts in the South Metro Atlanta area. That was the mandate from the court based on this pattern of voter violation. Knowing where the particular violations were, that the plaintiff said that the changes should be targeted to help those voters gain a voice. That was the whole purpose of the exercise. So that's what the violation and the order looks like. So what did the committee do? So in this case, the Senate committee, the majority committee, did add 2 black majority districts, 28 and 17. This is a picture of the new map, shows 17 and 28. So that's good. They did comply with the court order. However, there were 2 partisan takebacks. So basically, in adding 28 and 17, that was 2 net new black districts, but they also were Democratic districts. So the committee chair said, well, we're going to even the score here. And so what they did was they took District 6 and 14, which used to be in Metro Atlanta, and I'll show you in a second the before and after picture, and they basically wholesale uprooted them from where they were and moved them to outlying areas of the state, and those became Republican districts, whereas before they were Democratic. So again, we see unnecessary changes. This map changed 15 districts out of 56 and moved about 14% of the population in order to accomplish this. This is a picture of the before and after. And I want you to look at what's going on in the red circles here. You can see that in the western side of Atlanta, Metro Atlanta, this red circle I'm kind of pointing to, that's where the 6th district was. And it got moved way over down here to the western edge of the state. And 42 was a Senate district in DeKalb County, which was sitting here in Metro Atlanta, kind of North Metro, not really at all related to the region of concern. And it was then uprooted wholesale and taken over to district and taken over to the eastern edge of the state. So again, what we see is these partisan takebacks going on. So scorecard, what does the scorecard say? Well, in this case, the scorecard says on the left-hand side of the scorecard, this is the map by the committee chair that was then enacted by the legislature. These are the maps that are currently standing for election. They did comply with the mandate. They added the 2 districts, black districts, 17 and 28 here. And so the number of black majority districts went up from 14 to 16. We did not see any other concerns with minority districts, a slight issue with District 33, but not a huge one. So we said we pass it. It complies with the mandate. However, it doesn't pass the test of containing no other partisan changes because of District 6 and 42 being uprooted and flipped over to the Republican column. So we said those were unnecessary changes. Again, the Democrats proposed their map, and their map was able to accomplish the same objective. They chose different district numbers, but they added 2 black majority districts, 16 and 17. I'll show you a picture in a second. No other issues with minority districts. And they did it in such a way as to not make any other partisan changes. So again, we demonstrate that the Democratic map really demonstrated that it was possible to do this without the partisan takebacks, but that's not the way it was done. And this next picture is just a side-by-side comparison showing, you can see that on the left-hand side, what we're showing you here is all districts that change. The districts that are in color are all the districts that change. The rest of the state did not change here. It's only focused on Metro Atlanta, kind of, or the areas surrounding Metro Atlanta. You can see that the Democratic caucus map changed a lot fewer people, and they did not make any changes to the North metro area or Cobb County, for example, or in the northern stretches of northern Atlanta. And so the Democratic caucus map changed only 10 districts and moved only 8% of the population. So a little bit more surgical approach, no partisan takebacks. That map scored better in our point of view. Okay. We'll take a look at the State House. And the State House is an eye test because there are 180 districts. So we're going to show it to you in 2 pieces. This is the Metro Atlanta area first, and then we'll talk about the Macon-Bibb area second. So I'm not expecting you to read the numbers on this map, but let me just say that, again, you got the Metro Atlanta area here kind of in the center where this cluster of districts in the straight line is. The judge called out 5 districts that violated the Voting Rights Act in the kind of West Metro and South Metro Atlanta. And so the judge ordered 1 new black majority district in West Metro Atlanta over in this area, and 2 in South Metro Atlanta in this general region over here. That's what the judge said. Here's your violations. Here's what you need to go do to remedy that. 1 more district in West, 2 more districts in South Metro Atlanta. Turning to the Macon-Bibb section of the map, and again, it's hard to see, you can't really see kind of where you are in the state, but this is this area here where the districts are. This is Macon-Bibb County, down in central Georgia. The judge said there were 6 districts that violated the Voting Rights Act and ordered 2 new black majority districts in and around the Macon-Bibb area. That's what the judge said. So what did the legislature do? So lots of changes here because you're changing a lot of districts, and because some of the districts have very sparse population, you're going to see large areas affected, even though not as many voters were affected. But the bottom line was they added 5 black majority districts, 1 in West Metro Atlanta over here, 2 in South Metro Atlanta, and then two were added over in and around the Macon-Bibb area. So they did comply with the court order by adding those 5 new black majority districts. However, there were partisan takebacks, and the unnecessary partisan changes were right next door to the South Metro Atlanta. When they redrew those maps, they flipped a couple districts that were neighboring those districts. One could argue, as the Republicans did, well, that's just a ripple effect of what we had to do to make the new black districts. We had to change the neighboring districts. That's just the way we did it. However, some of these other districts to me don't make sense. You're way up here in Gwinnett County. This top red circle is up here in Gwinnett County. There was no problem in Gwinnett County. There was nothing that had to be done. And yet there were changes made that they said rippled all the way up to Gwinnett County, which to me is stretches credibility there, to be honest with you. And then there was another district over here in kind of on the far western metro region that was an unnecessary partisan takeback in our opinion. So that's what that's the nature of the changes. It's hard to go through these in any detail, but we'll show you here. This is the before and after picture. You can see kind of what changes. It's kind of hard to pick this up, but you can see that there's a lot going on up here in Gwinnett County that doesn't make a lot of sense to us. And these other changes, there's changes associated with the black majority districts. Those are necessary changes. And again, you see changes in the red circles that to us seem not relevant to the court's order and were not necessary changes from our point of view. So how do we score this map? So we said the map on the left-hand side, again, proposed by the committee chair that ultimately was enacted. It did comply with the mandate. It added 5 new black majority districts. That's good. There were some minor changes to minority population in other districts, not material. However, it contained partisan takebacks. And in this case, House districts 40, 81, and 82 were moved and flipped from Democrat to Republican. And then way up in Gwinnett County, District 105, for some odd reason, was changed. That used to be a Democratic majority district, now is slightly less than 50% Democrat. Again, those are changes that are, they say it's a ripple effect, but it's a pretty big ripple in our opinion. So we said this map passes the racial demographic test. You comply with the court's order, but it contains partisan changes. So we said the map failed the test. Now the Democrats proposed a map. That's the one on the right-hand side. The Democrats proposed a map, and interestingly enough, we had to give it a failing grade on the racial demographics test. And the reason is that when the Democrats drew this map, it added 4 black majority districts, 64, 117, 145, 149. They didn't add a 5th district that had over 50% black voting age population. However, they did add a district 74, which was just under 50%. It was 47.9%. And what they said when they presented the map was, well, it's under 50%, but analyzing the voting pattern, we believe it's a strong performing district where black voters would have a strong opportunity to elect a candidate of their choice. So they justified it that way. We just kind of scored it strictly based on the numbers that we had available to us and said it's a fail. But I would judge that likely the court would buy it if that map had been taken back to court, but it wasn't, of course, because the other map was. And then again, they were able to make those new black majority and influence districts without changing any material partisan changes, although District 117 used to be competitive and we lost one competitive district in the process. So again, it was a demonstration that you could draw these maps without as many partisan changes. And just for an eye test, this is a side-by-side view. The one on the left are all the areas that changed in the committee chair's map. And on the right-hand side, you can see the number of districts that changed in the Democrats' map. What's really interesting here is that it's much more surgical approach, it would appear. Only 12% of the districts changed compared to 32%, and only 6% of the population had to move districts in the Democrats' map compared to about almost 16% in the committee chair's map. So again, a much more surgical approach in our view, and it seemed it did not have the issue with partisan takebacks that we saw. Okay. So that's kind of a map by map view. I know we've given you a lot of information to chew on. This presentation, of course, will be available on our website, so you can download it and take a look at it yourself. Now, what happened? What did we do down at the session? Well, we testified at 6 committee hearings. We produced those scorecards that Beth showed you. We brought them to the hearings. We printed them out. You can see here Senator Cowsert actually using one of our scorecards to make a point. I don't remember which particular hearing this was, but he's showing our scorecards saying, see, these people score the map this way. So we felt good about that. They were mentioned in at least one of the floor debates as well. But really, our key point of advocacy here was that we objected to the principle that these maps should maintain the existing partisan balance. We said political considerations should have been off the table, but they weren't. And so that's where we ended up. This is what we call mid-cycle redistricting, which we'll cover in a little bit more detail on another slide here in a couple slides. So we were there throughout the event, and thank you for those people who came with us and showed up and also testified on their own behalf. We appreciate your support, and I think that our voices were heard, and we were at least part of the conversation based on producing these deliverables and having done our homework. Now, what did the judge say? So these maps went back to the court in December. The plaintiffs objected to these maps, and the judge then had to rule by the end of December, which he did. So what was the argument in the court in December? Well, for the House and the Senate maps, what the plaintiffs argued was that all those districts where you saw the dots in the map that were violations, that not enough of the violations were fixed, even though the districts were added, enough districts were added, the population was not drawn sufficiently from the areas where voters were being violated, or where the rights were being violated. And so they argued that while you've done it, you've taken the Black population from existing Black districts instead of opening up new opportunities. And they made that argument at the legislature, and then they took that argument to court. However, the judge was not persuaded by that argument, and he let those two maps stand, the House and Senate maps stand. The congressional map, the argument was that the plaintiffs, the state eliminated the minority majority district number 7, and that is a new violation of the Voting Rights Act. However, the judge cut off that line of argument by saying, look, this case, as we've been arguing for 2 years, was only about Black voting issues. It was not about all minorities as a group. So he was basically saying is, you may have a new argument for a Voting Rights Act violation based on the new map, but that's not this case. And so the judge let the congressional map stand by saying the state has done what I asked them to do. The hot news as of about an hour ago is that now the plaintiffs in all 3 of these cases have appealed. They've filed a notice of appeal. We don't know what the appeal says, but we suspect it will be along the lines of what they argued in the court in December. So that's hot news. We have no idea when this appeal will be heard, what the effect of it will be. We really just heard about this literally an hour ago, so we can't tell you what's going to happen, but it means that the argument may not be over in the court. They've appealed to the 11th Circuit, the federal 11th Circuit, in order to make that appeal. So let's back up and say, so are these maps fair? What do we think? Well, what we would say is that from a minority representation point of view, the maps are improved for Black voters because they did add the Black majority districts as requested by the court. The congressional map, however, is not improved for minorities as a whole because of what happened to District 7. But the state, Senate, and House map, I think you could argue that it is improved. It may not be perfect. It's not as everything that the plaintiffs were asking for. And the plaintiffs still have an argument about how those districts were drawn, but by the numbers, you've got a couple of more districts for Black voters to elect candidates of their choice. So that's an improvement. From a partisan balance point of view, not much change. The original map for the congressional map in 2021 was a +2 for the Republicans. When we scored those maps along with Princeton, we gave those a C. The new map is the same. So we wouldn't say that the grade has changed. Note that Princeton has not regraded these maps, but just looking at it's the same partisan tilt that we had in the first time. No change. No change in the state Senate. The House map, however, the Democrats have gained 1 seat, and so that probably slightly improves the grade. We don't know what a new letter grade would look like, but it's slightly improved over where it was in 2021. I want to make a point that when we argued about these maps in this special session, we never brought up the original issues that we had with the partisan map, the maps being too partisan. The reason is that we said our theory was political consideration should be off the table. What we're discussing here is remedying. And so we did not want to come up and say, well, the original maps were unfair and these are too. That was not how we argued it. We argued that they should not be making any partisan changes, and yet they did. So that was the basis for our argument. And so we never brought up the Princeton letter grades again in this session on purpose, because we did not want to muddy the waters and be making 2 different arguments. Our argument was there should have been no partisan considerations involved. So the maps are slightly improved. That's good, but still nowhere near fair maps in our opinion. I saw this just a couple days ago. I put this in that there's an AJC poll just released that says Georgians believe the 2024 election will be fair. That's fine as far as the conduct of the election goes, but free and fair elections really require 2 things: fair conduct of the election and fair maps that allow for competition. We don't have fair maps that allow for competition in Georgia. It's unfortunate. They got a little bit better, but from a partisan point of view, they haven't improved that much. And so our view is that you can say the conduct is good, but if your election has no competition in the maps, is it really a free and fair election? We would argue that it's not quite there, because the other side of that coin is the maps are not yet fair. Okay. I want to make one more point about what we call mid-cycle redistricting. Mid-cycle redistricting is an issue that we have in Georgia that's been long-standing. Mid-cycle means you're redrawing a map for political purposes between census cycles and without being directly responsive to a court order. It's happened 64 times, actually 66 times now, since 2006, in 4 major waves. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through this in detail. The bottom line is that we have a town hall from September of last year where we went through this in detail. We can now add the partisan takebacks from the latest go round of redistricting from these 2023 maps and say 4 times this legislature has gone about changing maps that were unnecessarily changed, really for political gain. So it's a particular form of gerrymandering that we don't like and we'd like to see stopped. Okay. You can find these maps on our website. I'm not going to have the time to go through a demo of the website, but if you go to our map at that URL, fairdistrictsga.org, the Georgia Explorer, you can now select from the map menu the 3 new maps that are enacted for the 2024 elections, and you can explore these maps yourself, and you can put your address or any address you like up in the search bar in the upper right-hand corner, and you can figure out where am I now in terms of these 3 maps. So we would encourage you to go do that. And while you're doing that, we'd like to find out, so how does it affect you? And so, Beth, why don't you issue our interesting call here?
Yep, we are very interested in taking sort of a research approach that starts pulling in some stories and maybe more qualitative information about direct impact of maps on people in Georgia. And so we'd like for those of you who are exploring this to go into the Georgia Explorer on our website, see where you are, see what your district looks like, what it used to look like. We'd like to know how these new enacted maps affect you. And just email us a paragraph at our email address up there, info@fairdistrictsgeorgia.org. It's also on the website. And the kinds of things you might be talking about. Did your legislators change? Is your legislator going to be in competition with another legislator? They've been sort of pulled together. How does your new district reflect your interests or not? In other words, are you all of a sudden with a group in a district that doesn't seem to be representing the kinds of thoughts and ideas and interests you might have? Is there a personal impact for you by the redrawing of the districts? If you wouldn't mind doing that, that gets us a start at being able to not just have the data, but to be able to have the stories and the individual perspectives on what redistricting looks like.
Yes, and we would love to see your stories and potentially bring some of your stories forward in future town halls or future publications. So really would love have your feedback. Now, before we switch to Q&A, I just want to call out a shout to our Zoom team here. They don't get enough credit, to be honest with you. And I think right now we are highlighting on your screen, if I'm not mistaken, the folks who are making this event happen. We have a coordinator who sets up the whole Zoom arrangement, and that's Leslie High. I think should be on your screen. I can't see it because I'm presenting. But there's Leslie High. The coordinator does the work of setting up the Eventbrite, the runner show document, helps assemble the team, and it runs about 5-6 events per year like this. Takes about 10 hours. And then we have the Zoom team. We have the primary and backup Zoom hosts. Today it's Cindy Persley and Julia Leon. We have a chat monitor, Q&A coordinator, and then Barbara Leach is our chat messenger who's giving you all those helpful links and resources. Look, we need some volunteers to help make this happen. These folks have been at it a long time. I know Leslie has in particular asked to have somebody come and step in and help her volunteer for that, but we could use more help across the board. So please think about, could you spend a few hours with us doing this? It's not technically difficult. You don't have to worry about producing the whole program, but in terms of the logistics and the coordination, this team is essential and has done a phenomenal job with these town halls over the last couple of years, and we'd really love to have your help. So again, info@fairdistrictsga.org, that same email. Please, we'd love to have your help. The job doesn't pay much, but it's very rewarding, I'll tell you that. So again, thank you team, for everything that you do. It's just great stuff. Okay, we're going to switch to Q&A. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and we'll take questions that have been posted in the chat if we can.
There were some initial questions related to the congressional map that came in from John, and then someone else, Abby, weighed in about the 13th district. And I don't know if you talked about that, Ken, with folks as you all were putting things together, moving from the west to East Atlanta, and it looked like a big change on that map, the congressional. So this slides 10 through 12. So if there's a simple answer, or we can.
Is the question why was there so much change?
Yeah,
Or-
is there, yeah, my understanding was it was that the 13th and the congressional map, slide 10,
Yep.
12, yeah, they're 12.
Right, right. Well, the 13th was where a good chunk of the new population for six came from, I think. And so it definitely had to move around a bit. Um, I don't think there was anything nefarious there in terms of the way it was done. There was not an argument raised by the plaintiffs that the population drawn into the sixth was from the wrong place. So 13 had to move because many of its voters were moved into six. Uh, and so again, the shape maybe look a little strange, but sometimes these districts have weird shapes, but it doesn't mean that there's any real issue. So we don't know of any arguments about that being improper in terms of the way it was done, but it did have to move because the sixth district drew population from, Western Cobb County and District 14, uh, also Cobb County and District 11, and then in kind of the West Metro Douglas County areas, et cetera. So that's as much as I know about that particular change in that district.
Thanks, Ken. Al was asking about, oops, excuse me, my screen bounced around a little bit. Here it is. What is the overall statewide partisan balance under enacted maps versus the Fair Districts Georgia proposal? And I'm not quite. That's the question. I'm reading it.
Yeah, I think we can answer that by looking at the chart that I showed here, which was so when we scored the maps partisan wise back in 2021, we said that the congressional map should have been a +1 for the Republicans. It got a plus, it was a letter grade C because it was a +2. The fairest map, in our view, would be an 8 Republican, 6 Democrat map. That's based on population distribution of voting preferences. So it's kind of off by 1. The Republican map, the Senate map got an F because we said a fair map would be anywhere between an even up map or +4 for the Republicans. Really think about +2 or 3 would probably be a pretty fair map for the Republicans. Georgia has a slight Republican tilt just because of the way population is distributed. Even though we're a 50-50 state, when you look at the statewide elections, Biden wins, Kemp wins, they're kind of toss-ups in some sense, right? But when you look at population distribution, that doesn't mean you'd have exactly equal numbers of districts because Republicans are more spread out, Democrats are more concentrated in the cities. There's a natural Republican advantage just built into the geography. And so we think a fair Senate map would be around a +2 or 3 Republican. We're still at a +5, so it fails. It got an F because when we do a million maps as a simulation, almost none of those million maps gave a +5. So that's why that was graded an F. The state house map was a +8 for the Republicans. That was within the range of the million maps, but a fairer take probably would be more like 4 or 5, +4 or 5 of the Republicans. We're now standing at a +7 as a result of this latest change. Probably within the range. I mean, whether it would be still a B or not, we haven't really graded it that way. But our view is that again, it could be slightly fewer Republicans and be more representative of the state as a whole.
Thanks, Ken. Do we want to mention where this talk will be posted? It'll be on YouTube, and we had a question about how somebody could access a copy of this recording, this talk later.
Yep. So it's always posted on our website, and on our website there's a section that's called Meetings and Presentations, and I think it's under the Resources tab right now, Meetings and Presentations, and you can see where that is on our website. it'll be posted there. We have a YouTube channel where the actual video recording shows up. I think Barbara has just, thank you, Barbara, in the chat has posted the link to the recordings and slides section of the website.
Great. And that's it. We did have a question about changes in Macon Bibb area, but it was right before you talked about it. So if that person has additional questions about Macon Bibb, feel free to pop it in the chat right now. But that looks like all the questions that I'm seeing in the chat. Unless there's any more. Oh. And there are lots of nice, thank you for doing this.
Great, great. Well, listen, thank you all. I'm going to show one more slide before we close. And that is, look, I want to thank everybody for their support. We actually spent a considerable amount of funds building the tools that you just saw, just even printing, hundreds of pages of reports to take down to the legislature. So your support has made this program possible. Many of you, I believe, or a few of you contributed to our year-end fundraising drive that started on Giving Tuesday. That was nice. We could certainly continue to use more funds. You can donate to us on our donate page on the website. You can donate to us through Venmo and PayPal these days. You can reach out to us. There's our email, Twitter, and our website, and you can reach out to us on Facebook and Instagram. We have not yet set a date for the next town hall, but stand by for that. We will be talking about future town halls. Last year, I think we did 5 or 6, so it likely would be kind of on an every other month schedule. So we want to thank you. I want to remind you, though, that what's being posted in the chat right now is an evaluation. We would love to have your evaluation of this program. Let us know what you thought, if it was understandable, not understandable, whatever. We would love to have your feedback on the program. If you have ideas for future things you'd like to see in the town hall from us, hey, don't hesitate to give us that information as well. We'd love to have it. So again, I want to thank you all for joining tonight. And I guess if there's no further questions, we can close the program.